Hey guys, Brian delivers you the goods here. I'm returning to you tonight for, well, it's going to be for a Wednesday versus video season 1 recap video. And this is probably going to be part 1 for it. So, yeah, and then I'll get to whatever number of the episode that I get to in this part of the video for the first part. And then, yeah, I'll let you know my thoughts on what I thought of each versus video that I did this year, from August to December, which was August 4th to December 15th. So let's dive into this Wednesday versus video season 1 recap video. Now, the first episode I did was Underoath versus Bad Wolves. I do plan to check out Underoath's music in due time, probably before their new album drops. So I guess I'm gonna have to get started on doing their album reviews probably sometime on the 2nd, maybe. I think I can do it on January 2nd, is when I'll start it for the next Marathon Studio album reviews. And then after that will be Bullet for my Valentine. Bad Wolves was the winner just because they had two major successes for albums. The third album being my least favorite, and at the time it wasn't released until October 29th, but mainly I chose Bad Wolves as the winner because I enjoyed the majority of their songs. Even with Tommy Vex in the band, they put out some good hits. Their writing process and how the songs were sounding were really good. Even in the Nation album, I really enjoyed that album in my personal opinion. But still, episode 1 I did was for Underoath versus Bad Wolves. Bad Wolves was the winner for that video. You can definitely go check out that episode if you haven't seen it yet. Episode 2 I did was on August 11th, which was for Era versus August Burns Red. Now, I really enjoyed Era's new album for sure. I've heard more of Era's discography than I have of August Burns Red, but I'm gonna check out August Burns Red's discography in next year for sure. Sometime next year. I gotta see what I'm doing for next year's album reviews and marathon studio album reviews for whichever band I'm covering or which artist I'm covering. It just depends. But Era was the winner in that case for the versus video for episode 2. And yeah, because I heard more of their albums than August Burns Red, like I was saying. So yeah. Episode 3 was for Disturbed versus Cold. Now I would have chosen Cold because I really like Cold's music. Um, but I chose Disturbed only because of the fact that I've heard more of their discography than Cold. I've only heard a few albums from Cold, Year of the Spider and The Things We Cannot Stop, or The Things We Can't Stop, or whatever, I think is what it's called. I have to look at the name of the title for the album. It's the album with the song Shine in it, and other songs like Broken Human, or Human, I think it's called. But still, it was a pretty good album when I reviewed it in 2019, and I really enjoyed how much of a mellow album it was, and very emotional driven album. So yeah, um, episode 3 I chose Disturbed as the winner, so that was episode 3 for uh Wednesday versus videos for season 1. Episode 4 I did was for As It Is versus Atreyu. Now, As It Is has put out some good stuff. Even their new album, I Went to Hell and Back's coming out in 2 months. So hopefully it does well, but I don't know. I heard some of the singles from it, a few singles I'm not crazy about, but the other singles, sorry for my yawning. The other singles are pretty solid for what they go for. Um, so Atreyu, I believe, was the winner in that case because I enjoyed more of Atreyu's music, and I've heard some singles from different albums, but I can't remember. I've only heard two of their albums, and I've only heard one album from As It Is, so I chose Atreyu as the winner because I heard Baptize and also In Our Wake, and In Our Wake was really good. Baptize was the weakest in their discography. It's grown to be a weaker album as over repeated listens. I don't hate it, it's just that's when one of the band members left. I can't remember his name, but you'll have to remind me in the comment section below. He left the band due to some issues he was having, and Brandon, uh, oh, please forgive me on my yawning. Brandon became the lead vocalist for the band instead of drumming, and so did the bassist or whatever. He started doing more of the screaming, and Brandon was doing the singing. And it sounded good, in my opinion, but I know a lot of people don't like Atreyu's Baptized, but that's their opinion. I personally like it, but that's just me. So I chose Atreyu as the winner. Episode 5 was for Breaking Benjamin versus 3 Days Grace. Now, I chose Breaking Benjamin because I've been a huge fan of Breaking Benjamin for years. I think I really got into them with the Dear Agony album. That's when I really started getting into them. And then I started hearing their earlier stuff and then going into their later discography, which were the two albums, Dark Before Dawn and Ember. And those albums were pretty good. Ember was their aggressive album that was really impactful and very enjoyable of a listen. And Aurora was like re-releases for previous songs, so it was fine. Um, there was one new song which was Far Away, I believe, with Scooter Ward from Cold, and that was not a bad song. So, yeah. Number, like I said, episode 5, I chose Breaking Benjamin as the winner. I love 3 Days Grace too, but Outsider was their weakest in their discography. I was not feeling for that album as much, because there were some songs that were very dismissive and very cringy to get through for a listen, like Strange Days, Right, Left, Wrong, The Mountain, I Am an Outsider, Infrared. I don't hate Infrared, that's probably the heaviest. Nothing to Lose But You was not a bad song, but Me Against You was kind of disappointing. So that's just my opinion. But the new reel was pretty catchy, and some of it was enjoyable. But I found Outsider to be 3 Days Grace's weakest album to date, and it's the last album they made before this upcoming album Explosions comes out. So yeah, episode 5 I did was for Breaking Benjamin versus 3 Days Grace, and I chose Breaking Benjamin as the winner. Episode 6 is for Spirit Box versus Chevelle. Now, I would choose Spirit Box now, but it'd have to be with a different band to compare with, to go against each other. But Spirit Box put out a pretty good album this year. A really good album. And you can definitely go check it out on my Best Albums of 2021 video. I think you'll enjoy it. Chevelle was the winner in that case because they had 9 albums that were, few of them were successes. Like, Neurodius was pretty good. Nothing is Real and This Is a Simulation was pretty good. I wouldn't call it the best album, but it still impressed me. But there were some shorter cuts to the album that kind of made the album seem a little uneasy to listen to and just it kind of ruined how the album's performance was gonna play out. But that's my opinion. Still, Chevelle Neurodius was still a great album from start to finish. Not the best album, but it's pretty good for what it is, in my opinion. But yeah, I chose Chevelle as the winner because I enjoyed their previous work too that they released. Like This Type of Thinking Could Do Us In is one of my personal favorite albums with the clincher. Um, what's there were other songs on there too. I just can't remember. Vitamin R, Leading Us Along, or I think is what it's called. And some other tracks on there too were really good. So, yep, that was episode 6. That was Spirit Box versus Chevelle. Next is Water Parks versus the 1975. Now, you know who's going to win, of course, because I did not like some of the 1975's last album. I don't like it anymore, honestly, because the final track to close the album, Guys, for Notes on a Conditional Form, the album sucked, honestly. It was just 80 minutes of boringness and nothing very good now. Now coming to a realization of me listening to it now in 2021 and going into 2022, I fucking hate that album. Water Parks put out a really good album, or a good album, I should say, which was Fandom in 2019, and then they started dropping downhill a bit with Greatest Hits. And it wasn't a total disaster, it just was okay to listen to. But it wasn't all great. So they really experimented a lot more. So they should have tried a little bit to keep the rock sound with their punk pop vibe or whatever they're going for. But still, episode 7 I chose Water Parks as the winner because there was one major success of an album and another album that was okay. So I'd still give Greatest Hits a 6.5 out of 10. It's still a weak album. Uh, Episode 8 I did was for Sleeping with Sirens versus After the Burial. This is going to have to be the last one I talk about, then I'll return to you for the other part, and maybe I'll have to do a third part too as well. I'll let you guys know what I decide to do. Um, Sleeping with Sirens did have good albums, but After the Burial was going to be the winner because they put out a great album, Evergreen. I hope they drop an album next year, honestly, because I haven't seen anything with their albums in a while, so maybe they'll drop an album next year. So yeah, Sleeping with Sirens did have probably one good album, and that was How It Feels to Be Lost. After that, I wasn't feeling for Gossip, honestly. It just was boring a little bit. It was decent, but in a boring way. It just bored me a bit with how Kellen Quinn wasn't really trying with his vocals pitches very well, and he was sounding very monotoned, very low key, and it did not sound very well. So, After the Burial was the winner for episode 8. So, I'm going to have to return to you for part 2 for Wednesday versus Video Season 1 recap video, part 2. So, definitely tune in for the next video for part 2. And I hope you enjoyed this first part, and I'll see you in my next video.